Michael, you're here.
Yes, hello Andy, thank you for having me back again.
Hello. Good morning in Wales.
Good morning.
Yes, you will tell us what you're doing in Wales with Silverstripe. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me just share my screen. Hello everybody, welcome to my talk on how we use Silverstripe to deliver bilingual and accessible websites. So let me introduce myself. Those who didn't see my lightning talk yesterday, my name is Michael Pritchard. I work as a software developer for a public sector company. Bear with me 1 second, my notes have disappeared. There they are. So I work as a software developer for a public sector organisation in South Wales. Although I've been interested in computers for a very long time, my first computer was a ZX Spectrum 48K. I haven't actually been a software developer that long. About 3 years ago, I installed a package called RedCap in my previous company, which is a PHP application. So I thought that would be a good idea to start learning about how to use the API, and started to learn some PHP. And that got me interested in software development. So I only started as a full-time professional software developer when I joined the current company I work for 1 year ago in July. One point to note there, I've put there the very first program that I wrote, which was 10 print hello, 20 go to 10. This is written in ZX Spectrum, probably on that spectrum. There are 2 points to note from this code. Firstly, it's a continuous loop. Go-tos are dangerous, shouldn't be used. The other information there is there's no world. This program was written 10 years before the internet was invented by Sir Tim Berners-Lee. So the agenda for today, for my talk, I want to go through what the actual problem is, what we're trying to solve, why is accessibility and bilingual content important to us and to other organizations. What do organizations have to do to comply? And what ultimately is the benefit for the user? Because obviously we're building these sites for the benefits of users. The main talk will focus on web content accessibility guidelines, WCAG 2.1 AA standards, which is the standard that we aim for. And I'll try and make it about a 30-minute talk. Our stack is nothing unusual. This is a stack that everybody will be familiar that's developing on Silverstripe CMS or Laravel. It's a basic LAMP stack, Apache, MySQL, PHP, and then we use Silverstripe CMS. And the reason I wanted to show this is that we're not using anything special to make our sites bilingual and accessible. I also want to mention, although my talk is not about responsive design, I do want to mention that responsive design is important. And mobile-first frameworks like Bootstrap make responsive design easy, but we still have to check for accessibility ourselves. They can help in many areas of accessibility, such as the ability to navigate using a keyboard. One other point to note is GDPR. All of our sites have to comply with GDPR too. They display a warning about cookies and the option not to be tracked. So why do we have to deliver bilingual sites? English and Welsh is of equal standing in Wales. All of our websites must be bilingual, and Welsh must be of equal standing to English. We have a locale selector to switch between English and Welsh. To help, we have a Welsh translation department that can translate the English from our website into Welsh. And Silverstripe CMS makes it really easy for page content to be translated using the Fluent plugin. We also use the T translation module built into Silverstripe CMS for elements in forms and for Silverstripe templates. Fluent is used for translation of back-end content, so user-generated content. It's required using Composer, and then a case of adding a YAML file. And thanks to the talk yesterday, this particular YAML file is going to be amended. So here we can now add the details on setting up the default locale, because our default locales are always going to be English and Welsh. At the moment, or historically, we've gone into our CMS, into the admin part, and we've set up the two locales manually by entering them into the CMS. Once we've done this, then we've got a locale switcher where we can select English and Welsh, and generally that's held in our heading of the website. For controllers and for forms, we use the _T function. So here is a standard text field that we use to output to a form, and that form will generally output your name and a text box. When you're on the English site, the content will be fetched from the English YAML file, and that by the key and value pair. The name of the class is automatically generated from the _class name, and then your unique key becomes the unique key YAML file, and the fallback text here becomes the English text here. Now this English text then is translated, so this content is exactly the same. It's in the Welsh YAML file, so cy.yaml, and then you have the Welsh translation. And when you select the different languages or the different locales using the locale switcher, the English page will display like this, and the Welsh page will display like this. So it makes it really easy for us to control in one place or one file how we're going to display the text to the user. For content in templates, so SS templates, we use the %T template syntax. And this is a very similar syntax. where you have the name of the file that we're serving this contact from. So this particular contact, this particular information is from our header.ss. The unique key, so the option to skip, and the fallback text. And again, this file obviously is a very large file full of keys and values pairs. I've just pulled it out just to simplify it. The skip content is automatically populated, and then we send it for translation. And it's a case then of changing the value of skip for the Welsh version. And when somebody navigates to our page, they can press the tab key. And if they're on an English site, they can see the skip to main content, press enter. If they're on the Welsh site, then they can see the Welsh version. To generate the YAML files, we use the I18N text collector task. So this task is run from as a dev task. When that task is run, it automatically generates or appends any new content to the EN YAML file, the default YAML file. And it's very easy then to see which content was already existing by going into the editor, your IDE, with version control, and it's very easy then to see which ones have got new version, which lines have been added, and those lines then can be sent for translation to our Welsh translation department. One point, a tip for you, if you ever see this, I see it quite regularly. If you miss the dot out from your key when you're concatenating the class name, concatenating dot your key, then you will see this on a regular basis. So the fix for this is just to put the dot back in before your key there. So a little tip for you. So why is it important to offer accessibility? Disability in Wales, in the latest census, 1/5 of the Welsh population advised that they had some form of disability. This could be a temporary disability, impairment like a broken arm, or it might be a longer term issue. It's important for all of our websites to be accessible so that all people who visit our sites can have the same experience. There are reports that people have tried using shopping sites over the last year, and they've had difficulty shopping using the sites because they weren't designed to be accessible. There was one particular talk that I seen recently where somebody had difficulty with the checkout experience because the checkout button wasn't accessible. Here are some accessibility examples from our site. Keyboard users can navigate every element on our site. So they start by pressing the tab key on page load, and they given the option if they prefer to jump to the main content. Titles are also very important to convey additional meaning. HTML needs to be semantically correct with H1, H2, H3 following a clear pattern to aid navigation. Visually impaired people need to see focus rings around content they are navigating. They allows them to easily see what is being selected. Labels have more meaning and send message instead of send. Each time a new site is developed, the improvements that we make are fed back into our base site, making it better and better starting point for the next site that we develop. The resources that we use are all freely available. Lighthouse is built into Google Chrome. The accessibility tools are powered by Axe. Axe have their own plugin, which allows more detailed explanation of faults. Wave also adds other perspective and identifies additional items that we need to check. Finally, some of our sites are spot checked by third parties. So I wanted to go now into a little bit more detail of how we actually use some of these features. So how do we actually use Lighthouse? Like yesterday, a little bit of a chicken, not going for the full live coding experience, although I'm willing to possibly give it a try a little bit later. So I've taken some screenshots here. One important note is when you're using Lighthouse, it's important to go into incognito mode, as other plugins that have been installed can interfere with the accessibility settings. So Lighthouse can be accessed from the Inspect Dev Tools. It's on the right-hand side of the page. So if you go when you bring the Dev Tools up, it's all the way over the right-hand side. Sometimes it's under a drop-down menu. And it's a case of going into accessibility and then Lighthouse. It does take some time and skill to go through this report and to fix the issues. And I will go into a little bit more detail on this. Axe Dev Tools is a Chromium plugin. It can access via the Axe Dev Tool menu in the developer tools. So again, once it's installed, it appears on the menu bar for inspection tools. And it's a case then of scanning the site to get the report of that particular site. Wave is a plugin available for Chrome or for Firefox. And again, here, if you go to the Wave evaluation tool, you'll have the option to install. Obviously, I've installed it already on my computer, so it's got come up with the option to remove from Chrome. There is also a lot more information on Wave and how to use it, which I would encourage. I'll give a bit more detail on this later on in the talk, but one of the favorite contrast check-in tools is the webaim.org resource contrast checker, mainly because it's very easy to use. You can put your foreground color, which is your font color, and your background color, and you can quite easily just move the slider until you get to a contrast ratio which is acceptable to pass WCAG AA standard. One of the things that I'd like to point out is this is the accessible version for Bootstrap badge info. The one that ships with Bootstrap isn't actually WCAG AA standard pass. Actually fails the contrast ratio. So I'm going to go through a very simple demo. Many of you will be familiar with this site. It is the simple theme. You'd expect a simple theme to give a very good accessibility rating. It's a very basic out-of-the-box theme. So let's have a look to see what the accessibility tools actually look like. So it's a case of going into Lighthouse. You can untick all of the other options, which then generates only the accessibility element, which speeds up the development when you're looking at accessibility only elements and focusing on that. Tim did an excellent talk yesterday talking about how to improve performance and SEO. This talk will be more about how you can improve accessibility, and the methodology is very similar. You run the report, you go through the report, and you fix the items one by one. Some of you may be surprised. It actually gets an 80% accessibility rating. Okay, that's fairly high. It's 80%, it's 80 out of 100. It gives an orange rating, so below 90%, below 90 out of 100, gives an orange indicator. So it's generally quite good, as you'd expect, but there are some things that we can do to improve. If we scroll down, it's a case of looking at the contrast and best practices. So we'll first have a look at the first item. Background and foreground colors do not have sufficient contrast ratio. Okay, it's quite a common thing to identify when you're developing a website, and it's quite an easy thing to fix. So you can expand that. You can expand this drop-down button, and you get a list of all the failing elements. So all of them will be available in a list, and you can have a look at each one in turn. You can see that the failing elements are inside the footer of the site. So I don't know whether you can quite see that. I'll go back a couple of slides so you can see where this is in the site. So here you've got your site name, and there's a selection like a breadcrumb where you can select home, about us, and contact us. So this is the home element. The other elements are going to be the same. They are A tags, they're anchor tags. They've got a light gray background, and they've got a medium gray text color. So we can actually find those in the styles, and we can find where they're actually being generated from. So here you can click on the anchor tag, identify where the style is, and you can go into that particular element. The footer A tag has a font color of 9999, so it's got a medium gray, and the footer has got a background color of ED. There's also a color of 9999 for the text in between the anchor tags. So these figures can be put into the contrast color checker and adjusted to find a suitable color that's going to be pass the accessibility tests. So this is the before. We've punched in 9999, and it's just an abbreviation for 6 nines. And ED is the background color. As you can see, that's coming out as a contrast ratio of 2.43 to 1, which fails the WCAG AA accessibility guidelines. So what we have to do is just move that slider. So this slider is here. It's a case of moving that slider ever so slightly, one click at a time, one drag at a time, until it passes the accessibility guidelines. And this automatically, as you're moving that slider, this will automatically update. The contrast ratio will automatically update, and you can easily see the pass or fail. As soon as you get a pass, then that color can be plugged in to the style sheet that we've already identified. And the footer element in this style.css. So here on the computers on the styles, we identified that layout.css line 433 and layout CSS line 426 were the lines that we needed to identify. So this is layout.css, and this is what it was before. It had 3 lines, and it's a case of plugging in the color that we've just identified as a color that's going to be past the accessibility guidelines. We can now rerun Lighthouse and have a look to see how our score has done. So it's a case of incrementally making changes. We're now up to 85%, so 85 out of 100. We can now move on to the next item in the list. Best practices. So these items highlight common accessibility best practices. So here we have user scalability no is used in a meta variable, meta tag in the name viewport. So the current best practices is that you do not have a maximum scale less than 5. User scalable is no. Okay. So we'll have a look at page.ss and we'll see if we can find the header information for this particular site. It was quite easy to find. It's in the header information for the site. This is what it currently looks like. And it's a case then of removing this maximum scale 0, and user scalable 0 is the same as user scalable no. So this is what we get. So if you were to look at Bootstrap as an example, this is the current recommended way of displaying meta viewport data. So it's best practices. The best practices may have been correct when that site was developed. It's been in development for many years. So we can rerun Lighthouse, and we got 100%. You know, that's a result. That's a win. We're making some really good progress here. We have made improvements to this site. It will improve for people with low vision, and it will allow people with screen readers to be able to scale the site and view it at different viewports. For the majority of other people, they will see no difference. You know, you've still got a medium grey on a light grey image in the footer. So most people will see no difference. But the people who have some form of impairment will appreciate this difference. We're not quite finished here, although we made an improvement. We've got some manual items that need to be checked. So additional items that need to be manually checked. Pages, a logical order in the tab order. Interactive controls are keyboard focusable. Interactive elements indicate their purpose and state, and so on. As you can see, there are about 10 of them to check. Now, this is where it could all go sideways. I am actually going to show a little demo of this because I can't do screenshots of that. So let's see if this actually works. Okay, so we're in the top corner of this site. We've just refreshed it. We can press the tab button. The first element is selected. It's an anchor tag, and it's to the main site. Press the tab button. We go to the main menu, home, we go to about us, we go to contact us. Perfect. Logical order, easy to follow. Go to the next item. We go to the anchor tags in the content, anchor tags in content, and then we go down to the footer. Again, lovely. The problems you'll generally see here is if you've done something like a float right where you're got an element that's in the middle of the DOM and you're floating it to the right, and then all of a sudden you're going down one element of the DOM, and all of a sudden the keyboard will focus over to the right hand side where you've got this float right. The best solution to that is to try and keep the DOM order in a sequence that keyboard users can see. Okay, so interactive controls are focusable. So let's have a look at the site at different viewports. This is where it's going wrong because it's not letting me select it. Okay, so we got the site at a different viewport. Okay, so let's have a look at your site. Great, perfect. Ah, what happened there? Okay, let's carry on. We're in the main content. We haven't gone to the main menu. Okay, so clearly there's a problem here with this particular site. I would expect after selecting your site in the heading to go to this hamburger menu. So let's have an inspection of this particular hamburger menu. Probably have to expand that and turn it on for mobile devices. You think I know how to do this, wouldn't you? Okay, so you've got the hamburger menu, and at the moment you can't select it. So let's have a look to see what this hamburger menu actually looks like. Okay, so the first thing I can see here, I'm not sure if you can see this. Let me expand it. Okay, so this hamburger menu is a nav, which is fine. And the hamburger menu is a span. So here we got a problem because spans are not selectable elements. It either needs to be an anchor tag or it needs to be a button, which are by default selectable. So I'm not going to fix that. We're going to have a few minutes for closing, and then we got our group photo. So I'm going to quickly talk through some of the resources. Some of the resources that we got here today: Google Accessibility for Developers, WebAIM Wave, and WebAIM Contrast Checker. Very, very useful resources on each of these sites. Google Lighthouse, very powerful tool. If you're interested in anything to do with SEO, you need to be familiar with Google Lighthouse. The frightening thing is anybody who's got Google Chrome can open Lighthouse and see how accessible our websites are. A recent conference that I tried to attend, but it was on for 24 hours. It was a free conference a week ago called Inclusive Design 24. And there were some great talks on there about accessibility. If you got a half hour, an hour spare, then you can watch each one of those videos. The one on what's coming up in web WCAG 2.2 was very interesting. So as Tim advised yesterday, SEO is really important for improving the performance of our sites. I hope my talk today has further helped improve SEO and help visitors to each of your sites have a better experience. Like Tim's talk yesterday, there are some low-hanging fruit. Contrast is an easy item to check. Improvements to headers and footers affect every page on your site. So I would my tip would be to target those elements first and then target the others. So that's not too bad timing. It's 10 past 10 past 11 in Europe. So we've got 5 minutes for questions and we can get ready for our photo.
Yes, thank you very much. You're very much in time. That's great. Thank you for your insights. I also worked on accessibility things last year, and we have some additional standards in our country. So I think that's the same in other countries too. We have some questions from Martina about color blindness. Yes.
Yeah, color blindness. Color blindness in particular is to do with different background images, things like charts. You have to display it in a different method so that people with color blindness can see the difference in the colors. So if you've got, for example, a chart, then you'd have lines across the chart, you'd have dots across other elements in the charts and things like that. Anything that you can do to help a different contrasts. There are also ways that you can pass your site through color blindness checkers to see how people with color blindness will actually see the contrasts of your site.
Yes, but otherwise you have to make a different version of the content to make it visible for color blindness.
Not always, but yeah, you can do.
Yeah, okay. And then another question from Giancarlo on ARIA labels. Is it ARIA labels? I'm not sure.
Yeah, definitely. ARIA labels very important. They convey additional context. So if the context is not there with a form, if you've got if the form is correctly labeled, as generally it is in Silverstripe, then you generally don't need the ARIA labels there to convey the extra meaning. If you've got the meaning for the form inside of the form itself, so like a placeholder text, then that's where you need to have ARIA labels to convey the meaning of what the form is actually for. Also, it helps for people with any sort of confusion to have a form with the actual text, meaning what with more detail on what they need to enter, rather than just asking for name. You ask for your name, and just convey extra meaning so that it's clearer for the person filling in the form what you're actually asking for.
Yeah, thank you. And there's another question from Pascal.
There are accessibility simulation tools. I would have to come back to you on that one.
Okay, you can post it on Slack.
No problem.
You're now the accessibility specialist on Slack. You know that. So
the good thing
thank
is
you
that I
for
work
now.
in a team. There's about 6 of us in our team.
Yeah.
And I've been working here a year. My learning curve when I started was very, very severe because I hadn't built websites that needed to be accessible before I joined my current organization. But there are people in our team who are very experienced. So if I don't have the answer, then generally I can ask a team member, or Google is my friend. Yeah, there's so much information out there, and a lot of this information is freely available. So
Yeah, great. Thank you very much.